Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today, and we are in the Retro Rebound Room. Yes, we are, of course, reflecting again on another Bethesda Game Studios game. We've hit up Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, Fallout 4, Elder Scrolls 4, Oblivion, and now 2 more games remain. Both of them Elder Scrolls games. One that saved the company, the other skyrocketing them to popularity unlike anything we had seen at its time. We're going to start off with the one that saved the company back in 2003, and that game is none other than the Xbox exclusive Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind Game of the Year Edition. Let it just be known for you game collectors out there, nice and early, if you're going to collect this game complete in box, get the Game of the Year Edition. It comes with all of the DLC, very important there. But the goal of these videos is to reflect and remember each Bethesda Game Studios game individually. If you like these types of videos, consider heading over to Retro Rebound. The link will be in the description down below, where that channel is popping off right now. I love to see it. And we have a lot of videos with this type of energy, positivity, just enjoying, finally remembering video games. It's what it's all about. So if you're into that type of stuff, because the internet's very negative, please do check it out. With that, I've taken enough of your time. As always, we like to do a little bit of a complete in-box experience to remember what is the game you're pulling off store shelves back then, and then we'll talk about the game itself. So, the back of the box says, The Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind is the most detailed game world ever created, where you create and play any kind of character you can imagine. Morrowind sets a standard in gaming with its incredible graphics, in-depth gameplay, and innovative character development. And I always love looking at old games because of what they used to call, in this case, incredible graphics, right? Today, Bethesda Game Studios gets cranked for their graphics, and it's amazing to see that they were considered, on the back of their box, industry leaders in graphics. Anyway, as I said, the reason you want to get the Game of the Year edition is because you can see on the back, Morrowind compatible with the original game, start a new game of Morrowind, or continue your existing save, then Tribunal, visit the capital city of Mournhold, the clockwork city of Sothasil, each complete with new creatures, quests, armor, and weapons. And then Blood Moon, venture to the frozen island of Solstheim, filled with even more challenges for high-level characters, and become a werewolf, and indulge your thirst for the hunt. Now, cracking it open, this cost me $50, and you're gonna know why, because not only is it pristine, but the amount of slips that this game and its Game of the Year edition came with, plus of course the Bethesda Game Studios maps, is insane. I always love the disc here. I believe this is Satanine. I could be wrong here. Someone can correct me on that, but I think maybe, you know what, I'm looking at the buildings here, I'm feeling a little less confident. I thought that was like maybe the census office, but I don't think so. Someone can let me know what that area is. But anyway, what we have here is the Elder Scrolls Morrowind Prophecies. It's a 400-page walkthrough official guide for Morrowind, so it's a promotion for that. It says it was only $20 back then. A software registration card that you'd send over to Bethesda so they could collect a little bit of info for marketers, like what factors influenced your purchase. And they have things like your magazine reviews, a friend recommendation, which gaming magazine do you read, and how would you rate them in importance, so they know which companies to team up with. So these types of things were actually very important back then. You just fill it out if you wanted to, put it in the mail, goes over to Bethesda, and they can take a look at that stuff. Of course, the manual being one of the most important pieces of a complete in-box experience. This was a thick manual, and as you can see here, it's because they're breaking down every skill, every art, every class that you could have in this game. And as many of you know, there were plenty of them, and how you'd increase skills and level up, the weapons you could find in the game world, how each piece of armor was laid in individual parts of your body. You had a left pauldron, a right pauldron, the gauntlet, the greaves, a shield. Your character could look pretty wild, and it wasn't until Fallout 4 that we saw that kind of system come back, which was really interesting to see there. All the different type of magic you could get. A lot of this is just text and explaining everything that you could do in the game, rather than some manuals like I think of always Final Fantasy X, which were highly stylized and didn't really have a major amount of write-ups. Like you can see, there's really no character models throughout this. It's just, look at that. Look how they explain picking pockets, stealing, things that we find commonplace in BGS games had to be written out here, because this was a generation-defining game, and it was when Bethesda Game Studios had their back against the wall and they had no choice but to swing for the fences, and they landed. And then, of course, there's some additional parts here for Blood Moon and the Tribunal expansions, with credits here where Bethesda was just over, I believe, 100 people at this time. And then the controls on the back with the Series S controller. Then, of course, what I imagine most of you are very interested in here is the map. The map for Morrowind. And seeing Vardenfell here, I remember, this is just a random flashback, I remember a video I did for Elder Scrolls Online, and as many of you know, like, I consider myself a big Elder Scrolls fan, but I don't pretend to know the lore top to bottom. I say Fallout is my specialty for lore. It just connects with me a lot better. I think the lore for Elder Scrolls is fascinating, but it just doesn't stick to me. It doesn't gel with me as much as Fallout does. And I remember saying Vardenfell in a video, kind of like G unit, Vardenfell. That was stupid, but it's so funny just seeing that. It reminded me of that foolishness there as everyone pounded the comments with corrections because I had no idea what I was doing. Anyway, as you can see here, this map, incredibly useful in this game. We'll get into why in a little bit, but this is just a good look at what would come in a complete box copy of Morrowind. Very colorful, very beautiful, and so yeah, happy to own this one here. And now let's put this all back in its case, and then we'll talk about the, actual video game itself. Mr. Matty fun fact. Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind is the only Bethesda Game Studios game in their legacy beginning in 2003, mind you, because I haven't played games like Daggerfall, but Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind is the only BGS game I have not completed. Now, I've put dozens upon dozens, if not hundreds of hours into Morrowind, but I've never beat this game. And I don't know if that's really the point of it all. Really, any Bethesda Game Studios game, I'd say probably Fallout 4 is the only one that may be worth seeing till the end next to Fallout 3, and yeah, I might be a little biased there, but I think those stories try to be a little more emotional, where even ones I love, like Oblivion, it's always more about the adventure. And Morrowind is a adventure, to put it lightly. The feeling of arriving on the boat in Seyda-Neen, creating your character, your class, that in-depth background checking was so awesome and immersive. And one of the reasons why I recommend it this year is Bethesda Game Studios has been saying that they're going to go back to some background checks, some backstories for your characters, and that's something they're looking into for Starfield. So I think it's pretty neat to take a look at Morrowind, clearly where that all came from originally, and how they could maybe be inspired based off that system, because clearly they're going to take a look at it as they have with past systems. I mentioned the armor system in Morrowind, and Fallout 4 completely took a look at that and said, hey, that would make a lot of sense in our world, and it absolutely did, so they went forward with it. But that opening for Morrowind, I just love, because it's so, I'd say, not epic, right? You walk out into a basic town. Outside of the basic town, there's just a road. It's nothing fancy. It's not like even what we see in Fallout 3 where there's the step out moment. Something like Oblivion where it's not as climactic as maybe, I don't know, Fallout 3 or Fallout 4, but it's the sort of like you're just in the world now. And I think Morrowind is the epitome of that. Like, you're just here. There's no vista, no view. You are here in this world. Go anywhere, do anything. And there is limits to that. This is where I struggled a bit with Morrowind, and I do want to say this in a warning to everyone there. This is a hardcore role-playing game. For every attack, for example, you're being skill checked. So it's not like Skyrim where there is rubber banding in the world that will send you back and kind of say, like, you're not ready for this. You could still find a way around it. You can cheese the game if you want to. Not to say that Morrowind you couldn't. I have a story about that I'll tell in a moment. But with Morrowind, like, if your sword skill is low, all you're going to be doing is cutting wind out there, man. You are going to be whiffing endlessly. And as a kid, when I was introduced to this game, that bugged the hell out of me. I remember so well going over to my friend's house, and he was playing Morrowind. I was in 3rd grade, I want to say. It was my introduction to the game. And I remember looking at it and just being wowed by the openness of it all. You just go anywhere, be anyone. And so I replayed the opening of Morrowind more times than I can count when I got my hands on the copy. But I could never get far in the game because I didn't understand when I was swinging that I was not connecting. It's funny because I had that for a long while. I started to even dislike turn-based games because I didn't understand when I swung and attacked something why I wasn't connecting. Something like KOTOR with its round-based, turn-based combat was really confusing to me as a kid. So I didn't understand why in an action game I'd swing and miss, but that's because they're constantly skill checking you. And it's something that you can really feel the power curve for your character as you get deeper into the experience more and more, and you start to get better at things, and you start to go to trainers and they teach you the way of the blade, and suddenly you're actually connecting on some attacks and you're starting to mow down these dungeons. That's where things feel really good. But in the early goings, I always felt Morrowind was somewhat limited. Not in a bad way. It's just not one of those games where you can go, well, technically I shouldn't say that, because you can go off and do whatever the hell you want. It's just that it's going to be dangerous. Now, where young Matty found his little loophole was looking up cheat codes, like how to just keep restoring your health. You had to pause the game and put in a bunch of button commands, and I think hold the select button afterwards. And when you did so, it would just keep refilling. So what I did was I cheesed so much of the game when I got stuck that I would just continue to refill my health, refill my magicka until I killed these enemies that were way higher levels than me. And eventually I didn't need the cheat codes anymore because I had power leveled my way to a point in the game where, was it easy mode? No, but at least I could hold my own in combat and wander off. The other part that's really hardcore of Morrowind, and I would, after Elden Ring, love to see Bethesda Game Studios go back to, especially with Starfield, where I imagine we're going to be wandering this universe we don't know anything about, is in Morrowind, you would check your journal, and it would say, take a right at this fork in the road, and then go a mile, make a left at the volcano, and then go another mile. It would just give you directions on paper, and it forced you to pay attention to the game world. Now, I do think a little bit of guidance wouldn't hurt Morrowind. A lot of people are very against that. I am of the mindset we don't need waypoints, but better directions might help a little bit. That's just my take on things, but it's another hardcore element that I can't help but appreciate, because what happens is you just keep checking your notebook and you keep looking around the game world, and suddenly you have a more intimate understanding of where you are in the world, because it's forcing you to really pay attention, look at the signposts, see where everything is. And there's no better feeling as a new Morrowind player or someone who hasn't played it in a while and going up to the signpost and going, please say the town that I'm heading to, please have it in one of the directions. And when you see Satanin, you're like, okay, off I go. I'm going to Balmora. Off I go. Okay, I'm heading in the right direction. It's a great feeling. And you check your journal a little bit less over time. It's another hardcore element that I feel really defined my experience with Morrowind, and it's something I appreciate. Is it for everybody? No. It's tough. It really is. I think Oblivion, as I mentioned in that video, was the perfect hybrid of introductory level gameplay and exploration while still letting you off the leash and really going wherever you want and being whoever you want within reason. I feel like they just struck a perfect balance with that game, but Morrowind was on the other end of the spectrum, and it's so funny now because people crank Bethesda Game Studios, rightfully so, with Fallout 4 and 76, and to a lesser extent, I would say Skyrim being these more casual games. The reason I say Skyrim is lesser is I do think its gameplay systems boast a lot of replayability, and I know we're looking for story choice and consequence here, but speaking of choice and consequence, Morrowind has a lot of dialogue. It's crazy, man. I mean, the amount of text walls that you'll read when you can ask anybody questions. You can go up to anybody, talk to them, ask rumors. It'll freeze the gameplay. It can be a little jarring at first, but I, again, really like this. I love games with a lot of writing. I'm a Trails fan. For those who don't know the Legends of Heroes series, it's a series with a lot of writing. I appreciate those little details. I know it's, again, not for everybody. It's one of those games that I think would benefit from being voice acted, just like I feel the Trails games would benefit from being voice acted. But again, I just love the immersion of being like, hey, have you heard any rumors lately? And someone can give you a little scoop on something they've heard about an area nearby, and you can go investigate, and there's no markers. So it's this real game about exploration and discovery. Not to make excuses on why I never beat the game, I'm just trying to be transparent here. But that's why I never cared about beating it, because you kind of, again, fall in love with the journey and the adventure, and it's not like the stories are bad by any means. They're good from what I experienced, but I don't think that's the whole point of the game. This was also my first introduction to some really important factions. Like, I loved going to some of the starter towns and learning about the Fighters Guild, and that's where I always got my feet wet. Like, you know, my first couple of beats in Morrowind are always the same. Start off in Satanin, go find the ring for that person that's looking for it, steal some extra armor in the beginning of the game, make my way to Balmora. Once I get there, sign up to either the Mages Guild or the Fighters Guild, and you'll have to teleport to a couple of areas to unlock some fast travel points, and that'll be a great way to get around the open world. And so those couple of beats kind of set up the framework, if you will, for the rest of the exploration. But if you're not into that, there is a way to mod a lot of the issues I have with Morrowind out of the game on the PC version. If you're playing it backwards compatible, you're SOL, I hate to tell you, but if you're going to play this game on PC, I remember doing a mod that not only overhauled the graphics and made Morrowind an even more beautiful game. I really like its original simplistic look. There's nothing wrong with that, but it makes it an even more beautiful game with some like ENB mods. And then on top of that, what they do is they'll have things like you can turn off skill checking. So every attack you swing, like in say Skyrim, will connect, and it just becomes a game of damage. And that can thin down some of the role-playing elements for some, but I think it can make it more accessible. It's not too hard to install, so there are ways to go about it. But overall, Morrowind's a game that I just think we really need to take a strong look at. I know Fallout's great. I love Fallout with all my heart. But when I look more and more at what Todd and the team at Bethesda Game Studios is saying about Starfield, a lot of the inspiration, I think, is coming more from the Elder Scrolls series than it is the Fallout series. And that kind of makes sense because Fallout really got little brothered by the Elder Scrolls series, right? Where we saw more Fallout entries, but there were often times that Fallout and Elder Scrolls shared so many similarities that people would oftentimes clown on Fallout and just say it's like Skyrim with guns. Not really that when like, say, Oblivion and Fallout 3 are around, but you get the point. Oblivion with guns at that point. It would certainly blur the lines a little bit. And so I think that's why it's important to take a strong look at, in my opinion, the parallels of Oblivion and some of the role-playing systems for Morrowind. Because Bethesda's claiming it's going to be more hardcore. They feel the fans are ready for that. We shall see, indeed, how hardcore Bethesda wants to get when the gameplay is revealed and we learn more about Starfield. But to me, this is one that's worth the dive. I can't say I feel as passionately about it as I do with Fallout 3 or really any game after Morrowind. Those are the ones I truly love. Morrowind I do love as well because it's what kept Bethesda Game Studios around. It's the game that saved the company. It's also one that I respect a lot, but it's definitely the one I put the least amount of hours into, and it's the one that I haven't beat. Not because it's bad. There's something really special about it, but again, I think it's about the adventure. It's about the journey. And I do want to, in like an honorary way before Starfield, I do want to complete Morrowind. I do want to wrap that up and experience that in full before I let Starfield take over in full, because then it'll be a while before I play anything else from BGS. So that's the game plan. I've tried a number of times, but now with like Retro Rebound, I feel like I could use that as a tool to kind of like, okay, Matt, you're not just playing for yourself. Now you're playing for content. You love content, don't you? Go on, go get them, go finish it. But I'm looking forward to seeing what you all have to say. How many of you out there have finished Morrowind? Is it about the adventure for you? Is it about the finale? Let me know, because I'm really curious on that. But also, how you feel about all the things I had to say about Morrowind on a role-playing front. Do you believe it's as hardcore as I say it is? Do you think it's the Bethesda Game Studios game that stands the test of time? Share your memories in the comments down below. I can't wait to read them as always. And we'll be back with this again next week for one final BGS game, Skyrim. So with that, take great care of yourselves. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the hell out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.